We survive. We survive. We survive because you were purchased by your mighty hand. We survived even though we did not really understand. Now that my eyes are open and I know there's only someone like me. Oh, Father, forgive me. Through sunshine and rain, with endurance from pain, we survive. We survive. We survive. We survive. And with the whips on our backs, and from the dogs attacks, we survive. We survive. We survive. Because we were purchased by a mighty hand. We survive even though we didn't really understand. But now my eyes, and I know there's only someone like me. Oh, Father, forgive me. In the sun blazing heat, with feathers on my feet, we survive. We survive. We survive. We survive. In the belly of ships, where we cannot resist, we survive. We survive. We survive. Because we were purchased by a mighty hand. Survive even though we don't really understand. But now my eyes, and I know there's someone like me. Oh, Father, forgive me. From Egypt of old, we washed it in gold, and we survived. We survived. And without your arms to make me live, no Pharaoh is oh Lord, we survive. We survive.
Wow, that was just fantastic. Wow, that just took me back. Well, first of all, I just want to say Soulful Voices was the voice that you've just listened to, and they are fantastic. They are amazing. Just give them all a round of applause. So today is August. August is Freedom Month. And today, the 1st of August, we are kicking off with a fantastic event. First of all, I just want to say that when I think of August being Freedom Month, I think about the story that my great uncle used to tell me. And this was when I was a little girl, a long time ago. Okay, it wasn't that long. But it was quite a touching story, and I would like to share it with you. And I hope you will go through the motions with me so that we can really understand what it is that we are doing and why we celebrate Freedom Month. But before I proceed, I just want to let you know that August is all about the successes and the atrocities that happened, especially during this time, for the children of slavery. We also call them the children of Jacob, also known as the Jacobites. August marks the month when the first ship landed in Virginia, 1619. And in 2019, we celebrated 400 years. But prior to that, it was also in August that we received our emancipation. That was 1834 and 1835. Both dates in August. So August marks many, many great things, great successes, and great sadnesses for the children of slavery. So my uncle, he told me this story. He said, you know, I love stories. I love stories, especially about, you know, being a little princess and being saved by a knight in shining armor. And one day I asked him to tell me a story. And it went like this. He said, Charmaine, did you know that you come from greatness? Did you know that your foreparents were kings and queens? They were lawyers and doctors, shepherds and engineers, farmers. And they lived in a land that their God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob had given unto them. And they spent many great years. But as life goes, they were driven from that land. And they ended up all over the place, all over Europe, all over Africa. Some even went to India. But for the most part, they ended up in Western Africa. Now, there was a man, his name was Lemuel. He was a young man, very handsome, very handsome. And he was married to this beautiful woman, and her name was Abishai. And they had a child together. His name was, Mordecai. That's right, it was Mordecai. And they spent their time, he was a merchant. So from time to time, he would have to leave his young family and then go off into different villages and different cities in order to trade. And that's what he did. He did that on and off for many, many years. It just so happened that one day on his journey, he met another trader with his young son. He trusted the trader. The trader said, okay, come to my village and we can discuss what we need to discuss. It just so happened that he spent the night in that village. And during the night, there were terrible cries. There was fire. There was screaming. And as he ran out of his room, he saw the place ablaze. And there were people that looked just like him with his same color, attacking the village, attacking them, beating them. Eventually, he tried to fight them off. He did everything that he could, but he wasn't, he was a tradesman. He didn't have the weapons that was needed. Eventually, he was taken captive. He was put in chains. All of his clothes, his beautiful garments were stripped from him. All his tools, his money were taken away from him. He and many of the other villagers were shackled. They had chains around their necks and their hands. They were beaten, they were scratched, they were kicked. They were in disarray. Nobody understood what was going on. The village was set ablaze. The traders led them out. Over the course of a few days, some of the villagers had passed away. They couldn't take the journey. And this journey, where were they going? It just seemed to go on, and it was so hot. And the food that they gave them hardly kept them alive. So you would see the children perishing and the old perishing and the sick perishing. And he was wondering, what is going on? Every day he's thinking to himself, my God, what is going on? Where is my wife? Where is my son? Where's my family? Where's my village? Who are these people? Where are they taking us? They continued walking for days and days. The days turned to night and the night turned to day, and they continued walking until one day they saw this monstrosity of a palace. And he heard one of the, we might as well call them slavers because that's what they were. He said, oh, this is the place for princes. This is a place for princes. He was mocking him. And he looked at him, gave him such a dirty look that the guy took his musket and hit him in his head, and he fell to the floor. But he managed to gain his composure, and he got back up again. He also noticed that the trader was also there, the trader and his son. And the boy was crying all the time. And the father looked at his son, trying to keep him quiet. Then the slavers came by and they hit the little boy. They knocked him to the floor as well. It was such a terrible, terrible journey. The little boy just didn't cry anymore. He looked at his father and he saw in his eyes, and his eyes said, son, be strong. Be strong, it's okay. He continued walking. They went into this monstrosity of a palace, a place built for princes, a place that was set by the sea. It stood there like a fortress that would last forever and that would have millions of stories to tell in its walls. They went into the courtyard and they were inspected like cattle. Everywhere, every crevice in their body was inspected. He felt so ashamed. This is not me. How did I come to this? He screamed. In his mind, he screamed out. He wanted to cry, but the journey took the tears from him. Eventually, they shoveled them all into a little room. It was smelly, it was damp. There were other men there. The women were separated and they were put into another room. And everywhere you looked, there was people. They were sad and lost and lonely and scared and frightened. This is not happening. This cannot be happening. It must be a nightmare. I want to wake up. This is what everybody's shouting in their heads. But you could only see it in their eyes because they weren't using their words. They laid close to each other like sardines, just stuck to each other. It was just so awful. It was smelly. It was terrible. Everyone was wet. You don't know whether it was blood or sweat, but everybody was just wet and damp and people crying out, and it was just such a terrible, terrible place to be. Then one day, he looked over and he saw the man, the trader, and he got up from his bed or the place that he was lying. And he screamed out. It was such an ugly scream. And he said, my son, wake up. My son, wake up. Why won't you wake? He kept on crying and screaming, the terrible, agonizing scream that can only come from a grieving father. And it came up in such an ugly noise. The guards came, took the little boy. His name will never be remembered. Nobody would ever remember his name because that's where he passed. They were eventually, after a few months, moved into another little room. This fortress was huge. Sometimes they heard singing. People calling on God. What kind of godly people would be singing when They are suffering. What kind of godly people is that? When they are suffering, they are singing. These people that had no color, they were up there in the rooms singing away, especially on a Sunday. But one day, they were moved into another room, and he heard one of the men in his own tongue. It sounded like the room of no return. And they were all pushed into this little room. And the man pointed to that door. He said, there, go through there. But remember, Lemuel, he was a big guy. Even though he's been there for a few months and, starved and probably lost a little weight, he was still a big guy. He couldn't get through that door. Others did, and they didn't come back. They went through that door and they didn't come back. And day after day, he realized that in order to get through that door, he can't eat. He has to starve himself. But that wasn't a problem because they weren't being fed anyway. But you can see through the door, and there's the ocean, and it was so beautiful. And the seashores came up and met the ocean. But there came the day, and he managed to get through. And to his horror, the men without color took him to the ship that was sitting just in a corner. He looked and thought to himself, would God it were night. And at night he would look and he would say, would God it were day. Because this nightmare had to end. But it kept going. And then they were put on the ship. And on the ship he stood upon the deck as the dawn started to come and the stars started to come. And he called out for his wife. He looked at the stars and he said, Abisha, would I ever see you again, Abisha? Would I ever see Mordecai again, my son? He looked up, and as far as the stars in the heavens were from the earth, he knew that was going to be an impossible dream. And as they laid in the bottom of the ship, in the belly of the ship, stacked like sardines, close to each other, and the motion of the boat making people's belly turned up, nothing in their stomach, but they were still able to bring things up. The sweat, the blood, the tears, the stink, the darkness. This was his life. This was the beginning of his new life. And as I stood there, crying, thinking, what a cruel story. How could you tell me about a prince and this is what happens to him? My great uncle, he looked at me, he said, Charmaine, one day you and your generation will finish this story and you will write more. Today is August 1st. It is Freedom Month. And today, we will continue to write a story, but it's not going to end like that. It's not going to end so tragic. We will give it a good ending because this is what we are here to do. And there is one man that have brought this vision to us. There is one man that has allowed us to understand where we came from and where we are going to. And in all your stories, remember the names. Remember who you are. Remember where you came from, because that will determine where we are going to go. We need to claim back who we are, claim back our God, claim back our rights, claim back our identity and our culture. Today, I want you all to stand and give a round of applause for the master teacher, the elder, the founder of Remember the 400, the inspiration behind August is Freedom Month, the teacher of this new life that we are living as Israelites, as people that are seeking the truth. I want to give him a round of applause, the most selfless man that I've ever known, and a fantastic storyteller, Elder Shadrock Porter.
We may sit. Good afternoon and good evening to wherever, what part of the world you are, because now it's not only here, but all over the world. This was an impossible task when I was growing up. When the truth has been taught all over the world, then shall the end come. That was an impossible task. Today it is very possible. You know, during the course of recent times, we saw another cover-up. For all these years and decades, we were having covered up. People in the good old days, my great-grandfathers and yours, always wanted to go back to Egypt. Today, it is the same. Yesterday, the municipality had a celebration for Emancipation Day. They do not call it Freedom Month, but just one day, when so many things happen in this month. And they flew an African flag. Now, Africa is not a country, it's a continent. But I have the one flag that people have invented to fly to represent Africa. Same thing when I wrote the song, We Survive. I thought about things like that, what our fathers did before. Always want to go back to the country that cause of enslavement. Everything that was bad for us was from that country, until we found a leader that was second to Pharaoh. Until then, and even after that, we still suffered. We cry every day, people like me who are Jacobites in this country and in the world, so to speak, except in the continent, how much they love Africa. But I want for you to think for a moment. You're in your mother's house, and you have a stepfather. Think about it. We are all accustomed to stepfathers. I had one. You're in your mother's house, someone that cares about you, and you have a stepfather who pretends to be caring about you. And there are some people with the news that they want to buy you. Maybe your mother wouldn't sell you, but you had a stepfather who needed the money. And eventually, he convinced your mother that she needs the money too. So if Africa was our home, and people say they brought kings, they brought this, they brought all these doctors and lawyers from Africa. I have no doubt that that is true. But why did they sold us? We hate the white man who bought us. But it's the white man or the white people who went to England to save us. It's Wilberforce in England who passed the law that we would be saved. Africa still did not do anything. But today we love Africa. Egypt still has, some of us, still has the color of our skin, even though now they straighten the hair. They don't look like the same Egyptians like when our fathers were there. Now they say before Saladin came, we were all black Africans in Egypt. They got Africa called Ethiopia, which is unlike, is not God's country. And we have our own Jacobites from all over the Caribbean worshiping a man who is dead, and he's a Hamite. We worship the bird, we worship the calf, and we worship, I think yesterday I heard a lesson from the man who's going to stand here after me, and they spoke about the wheel. We have it there somewhere. There's no flying saucer. The symbol is right over there. They want to worship that. We are so willing to worship every single thing under the sun. And I can tell you why. When the God of heaven and earth created us, He created us with a totally different spirit. You don't find anyone like us. No spiritual people like us. They pretend to be us. But it can never be as spiritual as we are. And sometimes I'm being corrected to say as we were. Today we're totally different. We're full of envy. We're full of jealousy. We lie a lot. We do all the crazy things that we should not have been doing. But we're still a spiritual people. Just imagine when we were not like that. That is when we were in the belly of the ship. Think about it. We were in the belly of the ship, and we didn't need anything or anyone but our God and each other. Today we don't care about that God, and we don't even care about each other. I know because I've experienced so much people trying to destroy me and this nation, because we are of the truth, and they can't stand it. Today, we're reading in the newspaper, and we're seeing it on TV, how many unmarked graves that one particular philosophy, not religion, one particular philosophy is responsible for. That is a cover-up, because that philosophy is the mother of Christianity. So you cannot say and call just that person or that people or that institution name. It is Christianity has done that. I can tell you today, I stand here because our fathers who were thrown overboard, over 10 million of them, were thrown into the sea. I remember them, and I hope wherever they are, they'll remember me. All the babies that fed the crocodiles in Florida, I remember them, and I hope they'll remember me. All the whips that was on our father's back, and they died. People like Nat Turner, who they roasted and made women purse out of his skin. I remember him. I don't have to remember Martin Luther King, but I remember Nat Turner. He suffered. It's better that he had a bullet, but they shot him, they hang him, they skin him, and take his skin to make women's purse, and then they burn what's left. I remember him. And he says he killed over 50 families that were good Christians. I don't know any good Christian, because when we came here, we were struggling with Christianity. It was Christians that bought us. It was Christians put us under the table and fed us like dogs. Now the dogs have good food. The guy down the street in Bloor Street, he told me, well, I know I'm a poor man, but I buy the dog food. That's very good. In the good old days, you couldn't feed your dog with those food because you didn't have the money to buy your own food. Whatever you left from your plate, that's what you fed a dog with. And those of you who have a Caribbean background, you know that. Today it's a crime. It is a crime. Everybody in my street have a dog. Everybody kisses their dog and do all these things. They don't even do that to their babies anymore. I don't know what kind of a world we're living in, but I can tell you one thing. The Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministry would continue to stand. Regardless of what happened, none of them had a building like this. It's envy, it's jealousy, it's craziness, it's everything that they want, not need. But I can tell you one thing. They call this Emancipation Day because they're afraid to say Freedom Month. They always want to give us just a little bit of anything that seems to be good and right. This is only the first day of the Freedom Month. You know how many things have happened in the past in August comparing to February, the shortest and coldest month? You know how many things have happened in August? We're a people of the sand and the sea. We just have to tolerate the snow because where we came from threw us out because we were not part of them. That's why they threw us out. And some people say it was the white man, but I tell you what, read your history. We were in the jungle, far down in the jungle. How did we come to the seaside? They're the first one that put yokes on our necks. Those are the first one that put the yoke on our neck and driven us down to the seashore. And then the purchaser, who happens to have a different skin color, bought us and gave them their 30 pieces of silver. Today, every continent have nuclear power, nuclear station. They're still struggling. Why? Because of what they did to me and my fathers. Today is a day. Today is a day to celebrate, and it's a day to remember. Remember the 400 years. The 400 years when we land in Virginia. 1619, my fathers landed there. And they were 20 were from Niger. No, today is not a scriptural lesson for me to do. But if you go to Acts 13, the first verse, it will tell you about Niger. Yet, they have white images of them. But they were very good at what they did. But if those people did not sold us to them, we probably, because we were making good, we made their countries and their continent very rich. And if we were part of them, we have good music, we have great inventors, we have good sports people, whatever. They should have been a very powerful continent, because in slavery we did all this. In slavery. And anybody wants to make some money, any great nation, They go to that continent, say they're giving them water. And we still love that nation so much and hate the purchaser. I'm not saying to love the purchaser either. But if we did not been sold, we would not have been bought. We fight for survival all the time. The day to this people, the greatest thing that would happen ever in this entire world is if the Jacobites come together. And that seems to be an impossible task because a few in one organization, we call it a bottom house meeting with me and my president and the prime minister in my days of politics. And he says, Nikki, let me tell you something. I don't know where your future is going to be, but you have great potential. And I'm not going to make you a minister right now, but as youth leader for this country, I want for you to know something. If you have 5 people, black people, in the organization, 2 is going to turn against you. I wondered then, I said, but he's the president. So I'm telling you, 2 is going to turn against you. Before I went to Cuba, I saw what happened to Grenada. Morris Bishop, with the New Jewel movement, one man stood up against the powerful countries, because at that time, my country, with our leadership, was called the non-aligned movement. And Morris Bishop stood up and he took his friend to make him deputy prime minister. And his friend organized to get all the guys so they can get rid of Morris Bishop. And they killed him. They pumped him with bullets. His own friend. So I was well aware when this nation started, and I spoke to the priest then, and they asked me why you're always talking about it. The day did come. I said the day would come when you will remember exactly what I'm saying now. If the Jacobites in the Caribbean, in England, in the United States and Canada could come together, the world would shake. Trust me. The first Pharaoh was afraid. He said, these people, they're getting too strong and they're making babies and they know how to make babies. And they're becoming too strong. We got to get rid of them. It could happen again. But I know with a mindset, you come out of slavery, you don't care anymore about any God. You only care about what you see. And if anybody is telling you anything that looks truthful, let's kill him. Let's get rid of him. I think Hofer said the same thing when they asked him. He said the greatest threat for the United States would be the Negroes coming together. But thank God they don't know how to do that. I stand here today because I want to remember the 400. I want to remember my fathers and my mothers, all of them from 1619, coming in that belly of the ship where they pee and poo on each other and still hug each other. Didn't care about the smell. Didn't care about anything. You, my brother, even though you're from another tribe, they used to say, I don't care. We're one. It's different today. But I stand here. It's a very emotional moment. because it's been 2 years since I stood here. Yes, it's been 2 years. I stay at this moment and I think about this great nation and all the plans that we had. You know, I sat down with young men and taught them how to be men. Sat down with little girls and taught them how to be ladies. Sat down and think of how I could make this nation so great. People would want to wonder, how come? The same thing they asked my granddaughters. They asked my daughter to make more children because they've never seen black people that was so good in the schools. Because St. Louis, when my son came here, my son-in-law, I call him my son, for 10 minutes to keep a meeting where he should go to work for Obama or he should stay and lead the group in New Jersey, I asked him, who's the most important person in your life? He said, Dad, I got the message. I said, go to Missouri and work for Obama. I didn't care much about him anyway, because he's not a Jacobite. But he gave my family a good job. That's where he practiced law, and he did it. But they know the area in St. Louis was top for crime. And they warned him when he goes there, do not live here. They have a chart that they presented to him and said, this area, you can't go there. And he said, Daughter, they told me that, but the area was pro-black. I said, every Martin Luther King street in America is shut down, boarded up, blocked, because it's pure crime. One person asked me that in New Jersey a while. You think you're going to succeed? I don't know, but I try like hell. I've been fighting since in the streets, and I will continue to fight. It doesn't matter what it is. But nobody's going to win over me. And somebody told me a long time ago that if anybody leave, Elder, I'll be with you. They're not here. They're gone after trying to bring the nation down, robbing the poor people of their money. They're not here. They're gone. And I'm still here. And I'm not going anywhere until my daddy called me. And he said, Shad, it's time for you to come home now. You got to give the car water. But until then, I would stay here, and whether you tolerate me or not, I'm still going to be here for those who do. And the God of Israel has provided this nation with good leadership now. I can swear that I have good leadership. There's no fear in me. There's no one trying to take my place by digging a hole under my feet. The leadership that we have now, I can pass from this world and know that this nation would continue to grow. And that's one of the things I ask the God of Israel for. And even if it's you and I here, the nation would still grow. Because that was the promise he made to me, and I made to him. Tony Castrilli would tell you, we were only 2 or 3 people when I wrote the Constitution. And when they wonder, Why we need a constitution? No church have constitution. He can tell you, had I not had a constitution for this institution, they would have been taking it right from under me. They all piled together, tried to do it. But I lay in my bed and I get all the scriptures and I get the instructions to write the Constitution. But I even told myself, I don't even know why I need a Constitution. But then I was told, write the Constitution. And it's a lucky thing I knew how to do that. And I wrote to protect myself and to protect this Israelite nation and all those who walk in my path. So today, as we celebrate this day called Emancipation Day, I don't even want to call it that. That just happened. In 1833 it started, and that wasn't the first. It's only in the first in 1834 when it came into law. But it was started before. But I would say this is the beginning and the first day of Freedom Month. And this is what I want to leave with you. I was going to ask for my song to be sung, but then they sung it. And now when they were singing it, I remember writing that song, We Survived, from the Egypt of old. Now you know. It's so happy to be here. So happy. And there's Pansy and Lewis. Excuse me. Ain't that something? I'm trying not to get your disease, so I'm trying not to think here. Isn't that something? Noah, you've gotten so tall. I know you were 5 feet, now you were 10 feet. Oh my goodness. And I hear my bright baby is going for a doctorate. I could have always counted on her. You remember that, Tony? Always count on her. I'm talking about, we used to call her Little Taya. Now she's big and old. She don't even talk to me. She don't call me Grandpa. So. But it's good to be here today. But I don't want to be too long. But I just want to mention something. What I have two people doing is, it's a very old kind of an art. Storytelling. And it's try to have Officer Sharman to do some storytelling. He did not do a bad job, but that's an English version of storytelling. Storytelling is when we were back in Guyana, we had no radio and no TV. And my grandfather used to be telling stories. By sit down, let me talk to you about it. He used to call Nancy's story. Oh, look, they're shaking their head, they know. But I guess when you grew up in England, it's not Nancy anymore, probably Crab's story. I don't know what it is, but it's a different, it's how they do storytelling. We're going to have another one up here very soon. It's on the program, I believe, somewhere. And we're going to have more Nancy's story. But today I want for you, when you leave, to remember, I know you call it Emancipation Day, but remember, it's the first day of this Freedom Month. A month that should belong to us, not February, a month that we really got our freedom. The same month it started, in the 23rd of August, when the ship came to Virginia, the 20 Nigers, and was sold for food. And I understand now they have a certain dog puppy that is being sold for over $1,500 for a puppy. And then when I told that to one of the priests, to somebody said, $1,500, that's cheap. So if the puppies are that expensive, they didn't pay that much for you. Maybe just a little plate of food for one of you. Just a plate of food. And then you were turned into slaves, and then it continued. And you begin to love the people who sold you. And that is something I can never understand. Would you love your mother if she sold you? I see that. I look at the show called Paternity Court with Lauren Lake. And I see children turn against their own mothers. And so many black people grow without fathers. And people want to know, why you look at Murray's show? I don't look at Murray's show anymore. Why is it that so many old fathers need to be re-educated? Because the child is not the mother's child, it's the father's child. All that she did is brought it into the world. But it's your child. You plant the seed, she let it grow. So why are you running away from that? All of us have that experience. I know my father, but he was never there. And I'm sure a lot of you too had the same experience. In this nation, I tried so hard. I told my grandson I would kill him, whether he's right or wrong. He got to stay with his child. Or if he's moving anyway, take a child and go with the child. It's your child. Whatever it is, we have to learn how to change our ways and come together. I can stay for a long time, but I don't want the man who would take my place, I don't want for him to be upset with me right now. Because right now, I can tell you he's a very good leader, and I have nothing to say, but he's worthy of taking my place. So I would leave you. I would like to have a song, but now I can't have the song because they're not even there anymore. Tommy, she's not there. She's gone? Okay, I'm gonna have a song, but I need Tommy. Tony, could I get a song called Stand? I didn't write this one. You did, she. Tommy, could I get a song called Stand?
Yes, sir.
And I would leave you with lots of love and hope that all your prayers will be the growth of this nation. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Stand for the altar.
Mic check, mic check.
Everyone could be seated. It's always a pleasure to be up here speaking to the world, especially on a day like today. Especially on a day like today. And we're doing our social distancing for those of you who are out there in the world looking at this on YouTube. Today's the first day that we're actually together in our building doing some social distancing. What I would like to say before I even begin is you guys seem really serious, really tensed up, really, I don't know, you're intimidating. Let me hear some noise, right? You feel good? It's Freedom Month, yes? All right, fine. Not that convincing. I heard Lewis. And some of you at home, you know, sevens, fire signs, let us know if you're feeling the vibes. It's Freedom Month. Here's the deal. We came together as a nation, Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. And every single department, every team got together as one person to ensure that a day like today would be forever branded in our minds, that our kids and their kids' will never forget. And that's why you see the flag right here behind me. Remember the 400. They will never forget why we came into the Americas in the first place, and how do we actually attain to true freedom. You know, it was teams like, I see Elder Kishrilli looking at me, the Secretariat. I see GAPUS and Culture looking at me. It was departments like Property Management to make some of what you're experiencing right now possible. You see security members all along to make days like this possible. There's the MOVE leadership, Elvis and team, which is the men of valor, to make moments like these and others we've had in the past and future things possible. The audiovisual team, the department, they are here. These are the guys. I wish I can turn that camera around and spotlight a few of them. Brian is always here, Teacher Brian, and his partner in crime. I don't see him around. Is he? Is he here? Uncle Lennox, not here. These guys are here all the time. You see us on, whether it be live on Facebook or live on YouTube, or if it's a video recorded that we stream. These guys are here at the drop of a dime. But to make these things possible, one team has to come together. We have to be united. Aaron, you understand what I mean? We have to be united. I see some faces here in our temple for the first time. These are individuals that they supped with us to become family during the Passover that we kept. There's a whole lot of them, but some of you are based in Toronto, so this is happening in Toronto. I see Aaron, I see Christopher. Thank you guys for making the trek. It's good to see people in the flesh, face to face. Freedom Month for us also includes those who have been in spiritual bondage that are looking to cross over to the other side. And that is what we call baptism. This is the season. Yeah, all right, yeah, bring it. This is our season of baptism. And Jakem is looking at me real hard. He is about to leave and cross over to the other side, God willing. Lewis and Pansy, brethren who have been here, you've been waiting 50 years for this moment. And I know how it is. Trust me. We all know how it is. We're happy that this is the season also of baptism, which is truly our Freedom Month. There are other departments like worship. You heard worship. They're always here doing what they need to do. And again, it's because of the teamwork. We can have moments like this. Always have moments like these. I mentioned team leads at one point. Some of you may not know that the nation is organized within different teams and departments. We have department head like Elder Toriano. I got to get used to saying that. Elder Toriano. Nice. Our fearless leader of the education in DOZ. But why is all this important again to you who are listening at home? It's the effort of every single department and division and leaders of the great Israelite nation worldwide ministries that we do what we do. And remember that August is Freedom Month. It's all of the energy, all of the spirituality. Everything that we do is bleeding right into this very moment. Let me talk to you about the pillars. It's a team within this nation. Some of you may know it. Some of you out there have never heard it before, but led by Harriet. She's somewhere probably working. And then we got gatekeepers. Lorna, she's somewhere around. Maybe not here, but in the spirit, right? Yes? Okay. And then righteous warriors. Elder Val is sitting behind there. You can't see him, but I can. He's sitting right there. And then there's the mustard seeds. Sharma Martin, you guys know her. She is the biggest cheerleader of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. She's probably the best singer I've ever heard in my entire life, right? And that's the truth. She's probably the best singer I've ever heard in my entire life. And you guys know all her tunes, right? So I don't know if I mentioned PWA. I probably didn't. But PWA, wherever you are, Progressive Women Association. Oh, I see waves. Yeah, I see waves in here. Great. But you need to understand, all of you who are in the world of the cyber and all of you who are sitting here in the flesh, you need to understand that it's not just one department or one individual that keeps the fire burning in this nation. When RT400 and myself had sat down in the early days, and if I should go back in a time machine, our elder had declared a day years ago, and I said yesterday when I was a little boy, and he called it a day of remembrance. And we had a lot of pushback still, because everyone focused on February. But Elder talked about the day of remembrance. We always had that in August. We talked about August. He pushed it. I was a little boy back then. And now it's evolved into this Freedom Month. And I was looking at the 2 p.m. broadcast today, and I was very, very proud of what RT400 did and streamed across the world. And it's the beginning. I always look at things, right? We are not a Hollywood studio, so I don't expect the results of a Hollywood studio. But it is the beginning of a seed that we plant, Christopher, that we would grow one day into something magnificent. We got to start somewhere. And I thought the efforts of those in Toronto was amazing, personally. I thought the efforts of those in the U.S., amazing in the U.K. I had to leave to catch this here at 4 o'clock, so I'll go back and repeat the U.K. portion. But great news. When we first evolved the RT400, it was about a year and a half before the Virginia trip. And we had a committee called Project 2019. And we debated and fought and planned and executed over and over again for a year and a half before Virginia came. And then a lot of the talks was, like Priest Andal, we did a fantastic thing in Virginia. Is RT400 over and done with? And we debated that for a while. Maybe it served its purpose then, maybe it didn't, whatever the case had. But a lot of RT400 faithfuls were like, the fire gotta keep burning. This is fantastic. He said, all right, well, you know what? We'll try something. And then it was the time of the George Floyd. And I basically was in my house, and I'm saying to my wife and to my daughter, look at the tube. Everyone and their cats and their dogs are out there, and they got their own narrative. But where is the narrative, the true narrative? That true freedom comes from us understanding that we are Israel and we need to return back to our God. It's not there. And we are home sitting down watching these people talk to our people and brainwashing them. And I was so frustrated. And I know we didn't march. We don't do that kind of stuff, right? March and sing Kumbaya and we shall overcome. We don't do that in this nation. But I was sitting there like, where is the narrative? And I called the old man and I said, hey, I want to go and march. And I didn't expect him to say, all right, you got my blessings. But we went out there as RT400. I tell you this, man. And it was, I'm not going to lie to you, I was nervous. I was extremely worried. It was the heat of the pandemic, and a lot of people were nervous, and we've never did a march before. I had no idea if we were going to be there, and 2 people showed up with their little whistle and a little sign, and there we are, like complete fools, sitting in a big open space with 2 people coming out. But life teaches you that unless you try, unless you are brave enough, Christopher, Troy Sevens I'm talking to, unless you are brave enough to take the leap and have faith you will never know what could be accomplished. Where did I learn that from? I learned that from our elder. He doesn't think in a box. How do you push outside the box? And for young leaders growing up, this is my message on Freedom Month to you. Don't live within the limits. Think, Noah, think big. And sure, if you fall, big deal. Get up, go again. Our God is the most powerful God. Not everything that I try succeeds, but it's a learning experience. I try 1,000 things, believe it or not. But one thing you have to know, like I always say, have more wins than losses. Just have some more wins than losses. You will have losses. I spoke to our Rise Toronto executive leader today, and I said, hey, I'm looking forward to you representing Rise up here today and doing your speech. The Rise member said to me, the Rise executive looked me in the eyes, said, hey man, I recorded it. You know, I did a good job recording it. I said, if they got me on the program and I got no written speech, you can do a far better job than me. And he shook my hands. He says, all right, my man. All right. And that's what we need. We need young leaders, strong young leaders that believe in the God that we serve, that are willing to roll up the sleeve, get out in the action, and make sure our voice, the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, and the RT400 is heard. And this is why this day is important, ladies and gentlemen. That is the only time I want to take from you today, is to just remind you of why you are sitting in the seats you are, and you out there in the world listening to this, whether it is live on the internet or whether you are seeing the replay, go to the rememberthe400.com. Go there right now. Subscribe to the mailing list if there's one. Send something, send a note, send an email. Get involved so we can get the real narrative of who we are out there to our people and all the world that needs to hear it. Thank you and peace.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody out there in Cyber. It's so different being up here today because like Elder Andel said, it's the first time back here together. So it's weird. Usually it's just an empty room, and just the council back there. But it is really nice to see everyone. Pansy Lewis, Troy Sevens, Aaron, really nice to see you guys. Brethren, really nice to see everybody. Oh man, every time we talk about Remember the 400, Elder Andel always goes down memory lane to Project 2019. You have to, it's the beginning. And I appreciate it because I do remember when our founder of Remember the 400, Elder Shadrock, came and traveled to every single region of the US to galvanize adults and children alike to go to Virginia to commemorate the 400th year, based on who we are. And since our successes in Virginia, we came back, we did the march, and we established, because before it was just a movement, it was an event. But the wisdom came to our elder, to council, to establish Remember the 400 as an entity. And now we are a global nation with chapters all across the globe. And appointed was myself as president, and Priest Tyrone as vice president of Remember the 400. And we had a slew of people in every department to work together to help get this message out. So as Elder galvanized all the people to go to Virginia, here at Remember the 400, we continue to work with everyone and our allies to get our message out. Since the inception of the organization last year as an entity, the one question that I got being in Toronto, Canada, even at that march, since then, was, why do you guys always talk about American history? What does American history have to do with us here in Canada? Do you guys get that? I don't know if you go and talk to people, if they watch the videos. What is it in the comments? What do you guys always talk about America? I go to the city of Toronto to their council meetings and same question. Are you going to talk about Canadian history? So I'm here to say, I want to clarify, who we are, what we do. I want to clarify the answer to that. Like our elders said earlier so eloquently, that we are not Africans. And the people that left Western Africa, that diaspora that took place, the transatlantic slavery, when they left, those people were my family. My uncle, my aunt, my forefathers, my grandmother, my grandfather, they were my family. Tribal. All of Africa was not enslaved. Like Canada is a continent from North America, our neighboring countries, Mexico and the US, Africa is a continent with many countries. And as we all know, it's particularly the western part of Africa where the slaves were taken, or my family was taken, and brought throughout the entire globe, scattered. So when my family landed on the shores of Hampton, Virginia in 1619, those were my grandparents. And they came in boatloads to the United States, all across America, and they all tried to escape to Canada. My family tried to escape to Canada. Some made it, some didn't. In 1790 of Canadian history, the imperial statute was placed. It was a legal bill saying it was okay to have enslaved servants, or slaves basically, in Canada. Can you imagine that? The bill passed. Growing up in Canada as a little girl, I was told this was the land of the North, land of the free. I wasn't taught that about the imperial statute. Were you guys? I'm asking the young people in school. The adults? A legal bill passed that was okay to have slaves. And if you took in the presentation earlier today at 2 o'clock, Here is Now, History is Here, sorry, is that a lot happened, and that was just particularly in Toronto. That wasn't even all of Canada. Joshua Glover escaped from Missouri to here and still faced hardships. 1790, that statute came into place, and 1790, a woman named Chloe Cooley tried to escape the US to Canada. When she was caught here, they tried to bring her back to the US. At that time, Grave Simcoe got wind of this. And he was all for, against slavery and discrimination. And he fought. He established the anti-slave trade bill, fought to end slavery here. It didn't pass. It was a gradual passing. A gradual passing. In that time of 1790, along came the American Revolution. The Brits and the American had their war. When the war ended, the slaves that fought for the Brits came and settled in Nova Scotia, Birchtown. They settled there, thinking that they would have freedom and they wouldn't face any injustices. Unfortunately, they did. There was inequality there. So much so that at one point, they got together and decided to make an exodus to Sierra Leone and settled there. slavery, it is here. My family's history is here, not just in the Americas. So much so that in Nova Scotia, the Maroons left Jamaica seeking freedom in Nova Scotia. Right here in Canada. My family's history is here. My family's history is in the Caribbean. My family's history is in the UK. My family's history is at the four corners of this earth. So when someone asks you, why do you want to compartmentalize your history just to Canada or the UK, you look to them and you say, my family's history is worldwide. It did not just happen in one region of the world. And like the Israelites that were in bondage, my family's history was in bondage of the New Egypt. I hope that's clear, very clear. There's another point I'd like to address, and I hope I don't get fiery with this because I've had this run-in this week. Elder spoke about it again earlier, about the Emancipation Day flag. It's tough when we speak to our people. It's tough when we speak to our people because we don't know enough. As a matter of fact, Toronto did such an excellent job with the History is Here Now presentation. And there was a gentleman in there that I was watching. I was like, wow, he's not even a Jacobite. He doesn't look like me. And he's got a vast amount of knowledge about my family's history. Isn't that something? So you may ask yourself, well, why don't we fly an Emancipation Day flag? You guys know what I'm talking about? The red, the green, and the black. And it's told the black is for the people, the red is for the blood that died, and the green is for the land of the prosperity of Africa. That flag was established by Marcus Garvey in a response to a coon song. To a coon song. A people without a flag is not a people. And the coons have no flag. I've seen that flag many times as a little girl. I didn't know what it was. When I started to get into myself and my awareness of my blackness and my consciousness of who I am and where did my family come from and my history, I looked at that flag. No connection. My father's from Jamaica, their flag, everybody always talks about red, gold, green. You guys remember that? You don't hear that. I always say these things. You don't hear these things anymore, right? They used to have the belt. I don't know if they still wear it. You know, red for the blood, yellow for the sun, green for the people. And I looked at that green, black, and red flag, and I thought to myself, wow, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. And here we have a Remember the 400 flag that was unveiled last year by Remember the 400, designed by our elder Shadrock, the founder of Remember the 400. And I'm sure any little child looking at this flag will look at it and know the meaning right away. It represents our freedom. Outside of our freedom, it represents the culture of my family. What do I mean by that? You know, W.E. Du Bois said that the slaves or the enslaved, the black, the Negro, the colored people, all these names that have been placed upon us, brought to America sweet food, sweet dancing, and the spirit. He's not alive now, obviously. I would love to know from him, what spirit was he referring to? If it's the spirit I think he's referring to, this would have been the spirit that was with the Israelites that were in bondage in ancient Egypt, and the same spirit that basically watched over us and everything that happened, that prophesied about the 400 years. This same spirit was the one that gave us our culture and the colors to go with it. It represents our identity, our culture, and our diversity. The colors, the purple, the red, the white, the blue, everything that belongs to who we are as a people. And not one Caribbean flag, Emancipation Day flag, has the colors that was represented by my family before they left Western Africa. This is why we do not pay homage to that Marcus Garvey flag. You understand where I'm going? Choice sevens. I want to make that point clear because it comes up now every August 1st. And I cringe every time I see it. I cringe, I'm not gonna lie. What I do want to say is I too remember Elder Michael sending out letters about Remembrance Day. I may not have been here as long ago as Priest Ando's a lot older than me. Did I say a lot? But I have to say, all that work and sweat and tears is not in vain. Today, I can stand before you and say that the Canadian government has finally, unanimously recognized August 1 as we're calling it, Freedom Day. It's not legislated, though. It's only recognized. It's only recognized. So I was a little disappointed when I seen last week, I don't know how often you guys are watching the news, but yes, what happened to the Native Indians? Absolutely. Anybody would be appalled, anybody. But I was disappointed to see that a Native Indian Mary Simon became the Governor General after that destruction. And I thought to myself, off the heels of George Floyd and the whole world marching, we just got a day that got recognized. Justin Trudeau and the Canadian Parliament, more has to be done. And not empty promises either. A statement on Twitter, thank you, but we need more. We need more, and we're gonna fight for more. We're fighting to educate our youth, everyone else around us, and our allies. I have to say in this time, I am thankful to the young people of Remember the 400. I'm absolutely thankful. Jakem, I loved it. Thank you. Fire, I don't know if you saw. Sometimes it's hard to look for the fire symbol on the desktop. It's just, loved it. Jacob, our head of production, Asher, Taya, our writer. Our young people work, and our young people are a force. I could only say to you guys, keep going. And like Elder Andil said, the sky's the limit. Think bigger, think outside of the box. Break the standard and set your own standard. I really believe in our young people because of who we are and the God that we serve. And if we put our belief and faith in our Father and come together, we can make big things happen. I'm thankful for the vision that our Elder Shadrock had. And that vision is what I carry with me everywhere I go in all the meetings. And that is to unite all of the children of slavery. To unite us. How do we unite each other? First of all, he spoke about February being Black History Month. UK does it in October. Constantly, we're segregated and divided. But August, a month that represents our enslavement and our freedom. Four corners of the earth, wherever our family is, if we come together in the month of August to recognize that, we are unified. And I hope that happens, that really happens, that more can be done even off of that. But it's gonna take all of us to do it. It really is. It's gonna take all of us to do it. I wanna thank all of the Remember the 400 chapters in the UK, Minister Charmaine, Teacher Jaden, Angela, You know, you guys have done so much for the UK. Thank you. I want to thank the Missouri chapter, Teacher Anthony, Elder Jeffrey, Crystal, Naomi, Sarah, there's so many of you, Ezra, Atlanta, thank you. Sharita, thank you. New York, New Jersey, Jermaine, thank you. Kai, thank you. Miriam and Hadassah, thank you. I want to thank our newest chapter, Guyana, which we unveiled last week. We did a Essen Porter backpack giveaway in April to all the children. For those of you that watched it, over 200 children showed up. We need the support so that we can do more for our people. Thank you to Stacy Porter and her son Malachi and to Ivla for holding the torch and for trying to keep that fire going out there all the way in South America. And right here in Toronto at our headquarters, I thank the team here because sometimes I'm not easy, I know. To my right, Priest Tyrone. Thank you. And we do this together. We've done a lot of great things that stay tuned. August 23rd is another air date from Remember the 400. Stay tuned. We've done some great things. I've said some names already. Taya, Jacob, Asher. Taya, help me if I'm forgetting anybody. Pardon? Atisha. Oh my gosh. Lord. Atisha, an integral part of Remember the 400. She worked with Elder Andel last year to do that march, and she has kept the community day going for Jane and Finch, for Falstaff, for all these urban areas to feed 400 families. We feed you spiritually and we feed you physically. And last but not least, an area of Remember the 400 that is dear to me in my heart is the marketing team. The marketing team. From its very inception, from Project 2019 to now, I thank the marketing team. Sophie and Kai and Rachel have honestly done amazing things with our social media. No, they're not bots. I wanted to get bots. Real people subscribing and learning and keeping us relevant. Rachel has now become the new head of marketing and has galvanized young people to do more in the marketing area. So thank you to the marketing team. Thank you to Elder Rob, to Elder Arlene, everyone that supports whatever you do, however your hands are involved to get our message out about who we are and who our God is. I thank you. And all we can ask is for more support. Like, share, comment, share the GoFundMe page. Share the You notice since George Floyd is over, donations have dwindled, right? But support. I want to thank Pansy and Lewis for your major contributions and for your support to Remember the 400. You guys have been at every single event. No one called and asked. You just saw the broadcast. How can I help? What can I do? In your contributions, whatever it is that we needed, your support has helped us even with flags. So I thank you guys. And I could only hope that more people out there can do the same. So I hope in the chat room you can put the GoFundMe up for Remember the 400 and all of our ats and handles so that people can follow and support, because we really appreciate it. And we're looking to you, especially our young people who should and is the voice of a nation and the strength of the nation, especially our young men. Let's go, let's do this thing. And with that, I say, Happy Freedom Month.
Oh, come on, continue clapping, that was fantastic. That was so wonderful. If you didn't know, that was Priest Doreen, and she is the president of Remember the 400. And before that, we had Elder Andel, who is our boss, even though he hates when I say it. And before that, we had our master teacher, and leader of the Israelite nation, Elder Shadrock Porter. Now, I would like to bring up another wonderful young lady, and she's going to tell us a story because we like stories, right? So for that, I want you to put your hands together for Natasha Waterman-Soiree.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Freedom Month. I have a story to tell you. I want you to imagine a young man about anywhere between 17 to 21, say, okay? And think of that young man today. He's a black a Jacobite, as we call him. He's torn. Imagine how his life is right now. Just imagine right now how it is for him when he looks out and sees other people like himself and thinks, what does my future look like? Think about how that young man, maybe he has a dad, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he has leadership, maybe he doesn't. But the way that he sees life is totally different. Because what he sees is his brothers have a target on their back. Imagine every black child Jacobite walking around with a target on their back. Imagine being a black man, a black young youth with that target on your back. And every time you go out, you wonder, am I gonna get hit today? Is it gonna be a slander? Is it gonna be judgment? Is it gonna be prejudice? Is it gonna be hate? Is it gonna be another brother trying to take something I got? And think about that child who has no idea of who he is. He is a man who has no understanding of who he is. He has a low spirit. Imagine that. Imagine that whole reality for a young black man coming up today with no culture, no history, no even place of where am I from. He has no idea. So my story begins. A young man walked into my salon. And as he was coming down the stairs, he had baggy pants on, and he was holding them up. And he had these big shoes that looked like they were oversized. He had a white shirt that was stretched out, and his head low, and he walked down the stairs, and he walked to my chair. And when he sat in my chair, as a hairdresser, you feel everything. We feel the spirit, we feel the vibe, the energy that people are going through. They sit down, the hair is so spiritual that as soon as they sit in your chair, you have a feeling of how they feel. This man's spirit was really, really low. And I knew this young man previously, before COVID. He was a little heavier, he was happier, he had a job, he was skipping in his walk. He had promise and hope in his life of where he was going. But yet this day when he came to me, he was very thin, very small, his clothes were oversized. And his head was low. He couldn't even pull his head up. He was just low. So I said to him, "What's going on?" And he said, "Nothing." And I said, "No, what's going on with you? This is not like you. What's going on?" And he goes, "Well, I'm alive." And I thought for a moment,
I'm alive. That's what you got going for you? That's it? And it broke my heart because I'm a mom. And I sat there and I thought how my heart broke for him, because I was like, what's going on, really? And so he starts getting into his story. And his story is really so minuscule. Like, it's not even important. It's such a small thing that he had a fight with his father, and certain things were happening, but his dad didn't have a dad. And so there was all of these things that came with this whole story. But as he's sitting there, he's just he's slumping more and more, and he's getting lower and lower. And I said, look up, put your head up. So he sat back. I go, put your shoulders back and sit back in the chair, because he was slouched over. And I want him to put on the cape, and I want him to be up. And so he sits back, and I go, look at yourself. And this is so emotional, because we know that there is this story is a story, but it's a real story. And there's so many men out there. And when he looked up, he didn't even want to look at himself in the mirror. He didn't even want to look at himself in the mirror. And I said, look at yourself. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? And he was like, I go, do you know who you are? I said, you know that you are a child of the greatest God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? I go, do you know how precious you are to him? Do you know your purpose? Do you know that you are the most important possession to the God of Israel? Do you know how powerful you are? Do you see your skin? Do you see how beautiful you are? Look at you. You're gorgeous. You're perfect. But yet you're sitting there and your head is down and you're low and your spirit's low. Your father couldn't be the father you want him to be because he didn't have a father, and he doesn't know his history. He doesn't know his culture. He doesn't know his God. He doesn't know nothing. So how is he going to lift you up? And he was there. And as he was listening to me, you could see his spirit was getting strong. I was filling him up. I was saying, do you know that black men are sought after? You guys are always a target, but it's because you're so important. You wouldn't be a target if you weren't important. If you were nothing, people wouldn't care about you. They'd walk past you. Police wouldn't be trying to pull you over. You know what I mean? If you were really nothing, nobody would care. But yet you're so powerful that you're recognized from you walk in the room. Whether it be because you have a bandana, or whether it just be because of your skin tone, or whether it be whatever it is that you have on. But truthfully, your presence is so big. Your presence is large. It makes the room small when you come in. So when you start to know who you are, I said to him, you have every reason to say to me, I am blessed because I'm important. But you need to know. Now, imagine all of that. His face, he was brighter. I was cutting his hair. I styled him up. He looked good. You know, he felt better. And as he got up and he got ready to leave, he gave me a hug and he said, thank you. But what's so important is now imagine a man, a young boy between 17 and 23, 21, who knows his history, who knows where he's from, who knows his ancestors and his God. He knows his ancestry, and his God. Imagine a man who is raised by a village, raised with culture that's so rich, and direction and purpose. And imagine how that man feels and how he looks at life and what his perception is when he gets up in the morning. He sees that the world has no words but yes for him. For his God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, We'll grant him whatever he needs, and we'll take him wherever he wants to go. The two realities of our Jacobites versus our Israelites. And that's my story. Peace.
What happened to the club? What happened? Are you guys waiting for me to dance? I would just ask somebody said, why did Shadrock invent that word Jacobites? So I said, this is the best way to explain it to them. We're the children of Jacob. And they said it's not in the Bible. The Jacobites is not in the Bible. So I want for you to know, African American is not in the Bible either. And that is two continents. One sold you and one bought you. So let's just try to embrace Jacobites. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want you to put your hands together for another young man, Christopher Porter.
Peace. Welcome to everybody here. My name is Christopher Porter, the Toronto executive for RISE here. RISE standing for Restoring Israelites Through Self-Awareness and Education. And I am honored to be acknowledging Freedom Month, August as our Freedom Month here with Remember the 400. Why August as our Freedom Month? The history of Black History Month in North America, it actually first originated as a week-long observation, but they chose February to recognize the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, whereas Black History Month in the United Kingdom, it was actually held in October to recognize the disputes of ancient African tribes around that time, and it's also the beginning of their academic year. And while all those rationalities are worthwhile, none of it really fully encompasses the history of the enslaved Africans here in the Americas. The month of August tells our story. All right, you know, I ain't got my water, man. I was sitting there and I was listening to Priest Andal, and I was really listening to what he was saying. And Priest Andal is, I love hearing Priest Andal. He's always fire. He knows how to kindle the fire, for real. He's very talented. I can see why the torch was passed down to him. And he was talking about, there's a lot of reminiscing going on. He was talking about, oh, thank you. You know, the narrative. He was on the news, he was watching everybody outside on the streets, and what's the narrative? What is the true narrative? What is the true narrative? You know, my grandfather, he told me a while ago, I don't know if he told me or if somebody told me that they told him, regardless, it was from my grandfather regardless, and he told me what separates nations is not what you think. It's not your skin color, it's not what you look like, but it's spiritual and cultural practices is what separates nations. The idea of race is even a European concept. The connection between race and what you look like is European. It originates from your kinship, where you come from. Who are you? And I reiterate what my priest says, Priest Andal, on that same day when we were marching here in Toronto. Who were you before you were on that ship? Who are you? You know, to remember the 400's mission is to tell the true story of the children of slavery. And you know, and again, everybody's reminiscing, and it makes me think back of when Remember the 400 took that trip down to Hampton, Virginia, and all the trials and the tribulations that was in, front of my leadership. You know, I talked to Auntie Doreen, I spoke to, even after the successes of it, you go back and you look at, in hindsight it's 2020, you go back and look at all the trials and the tribulations, and it really reminds me of a scripture that you reap what you sow. You know what I really like? I like popular scriptures, and I like finding out that people like to take a short version of it and then finding out what the extra piece is, what piece was missing. And that phrase, you reap what you sow, is only the short version of it. The actual version is you reap what you sow if you faint not. And I think that's a very important part of that whole saying, because you don't just reap what you sow, you reap what you sow if you faint not. And that correlates back to the trials and the tribulations of my leadership during that same time when we went to Hampton, Virginia. There was a pushback with everything trying to get that event established and make it a success. The greatest lessons that I've ever learned anyway has never been from my friends or from any teachers, but I was talking to one of my RISE members about this just last night. But all the greatest lessons I've ever learned was from my enemies. Your enemies teach you so many things about yourself. They teach you where you're slipping, where you don't got it fully upright. And I see even pain and suffering and trial and tribulations, I see it poetically. Even in the scriptures, it talks about long suffering and how it's such an integral part to your evolution and your growth. Long suffering. I see all of the pushback and all the stumbling blocks as an opportunity for freedom, an opportunity for growth. It's all instrumental. Everything is not just because. Everything is for a reason. There's no such thing as coincidences in this life. Remember the 400, such a good name. Remember the 400. Remember the 400. What happened in those 400 years? All the resilience. Remember the resilience of your fathers. The resilience that was passed down to you. I see it that way. No other nation could have went through what you went through and survived. They would have died off, but it couldn't have been us, God forbid. Like I said, there's no coincidences in this life. And I say it again, who were you before you got on that ship? What will you do with that resilience? Remember the 400. Remember all the resilience that your fathers had, that your mothers had, that your brothers and your sisters. I apologize. But it's a great time of the year. You know, the sun is out. August is a beautiful time. And February really isn't a time for people like us anyway. You know, we're people of the sun. Like they say, we got kissed by the sun. You know, it doesn't make sense for us to be in February, the coldest. I was born in February, the coldest month of the year. Yeah. August is so much more appropriate. I would like to thank my elder Shadrock Porter for the foundation to this initiative that is so well needed in our community. I would like to thank Remember the 400. I'd like to thank the Israelite nation as well. And I'd like to thank all of you who are viewing this live and supporting us. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, I welcome you and I hope to see you again. Peace. Thank you.
Now that's what Priest Dorian was talking about. The future belongs to our youth. And as you see, we have an excellent example of a young man which will lead this nation one day. Who knows? But I want you to put your hands together. But first of all, did you all enjoy the dancing? Yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it? All right. Very good, very good. Okay, so now I want you to put your hands together for another member of Remember the 400. This is the Vice President, Priest Tyrone Soiree.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Officer Charmaine. And first, I would like to say today is a really good day. It's a great day, and grateful to be here at the Remember the 400 event that was set up by our very own Elder Shadrock Porter. Now, I listened very, very diligently to all of the messages that was brought forth today about the Remember the 400, about who we are, how it started, from even our Elder Shadrock, from listening to his stories and his journey whilst growing up as a young man in Guyana and what he experienced as a young man in Guyana. I've listened to the stories and the dances, I've watched the dance moves, I've listened to the story from Natasha, my wife, of a young man who she encountered and understanding who young men are, black Jacobs are. And I had something to say, but I would like to say this. Whilst I was a young man myself growing up in the UK, London, I used to hear a lot of stories, so I resonate with stories, as you call it, Nancy stories. My grandmother and my mother used to talk to me a lot about this spiritual aspect of growing up, because they were very spiritual. They grew up knowing certain things of how to do, how to protect oneself, how to get things of a spiritual nature. They taught me stories. They spoke to me stories about spiritual encounters with things that you think are human beings whilst they were growing up in Africa, but they were not. I experienced some things myself whilst going there as a young child. But this is my greatest experience whilst being 13, 14 years old, and I was taken to Dakar, Senegal. From there, my mother decided to take myself and my sister to the island of Gorée, which was known as a slave island, because growing up, I also heard stories of my fathers and our ancestors were taken as slaves, and they were brought back to Sierra Leone, West Africa, and then settled in Senegal. And I listened to all these stories growing up, and I was like, oh, this is very interesting. I listened to the stories of my mother telling me and my grandmother telling me how the Caribbeans, or particularly the Jamaicans, used to hate the Africans. And they used to say, it was you who sold us. I didn't understand growing up as a child. Why, we're meant to be the same. How did you sell us? How? It was only growing up I fully understood, and coming to the Israelite nation, just exactly what that meant. And our elder Shadrock explained that. And that blew my mind completely. But once I was 14 years old and we were visiting Senegal, and my mother took me to the slave island, Gore. She took us with the purpose to show me and my sister of the slave palace. And Elder Shadrock has often said that they knew we were royalty, so they called it the slave palace. And my mother took us there and we walked around the island. You could walk around it in a couple of hours. Very small island, just off the shore of Senegal. And we had to take a ship of some sort to that particular island. And the sea was black. I remember this very clearly. The sea was black. And the waves was tossing and throwing. That boat would not be still. And the captain said, these seas will never be still because of the slaves that died in these waters. Very, very touching for me at that time. And my mother, because my mother was always in tears about that. And the ship would go to and fro. They said the slaves are down there because when they were taken from the slave island or the slave palaces, we'll get to a bit of a description of what that was. They were thrown aboard for insurance purposes in the chain, cut the chain, and they were all going down to shark-infested waters. Shark-infested waters, eaten alive. They had a field day. And so the slaves, and this is what the captain said, the souls or the spirit of the slaves in that water are always tormented. And I often think to myself, wow. I went inside the actual slave palace, downstairs in the actual quarters, where the slaves were kept. The women and children were kept in one side. The men were kept in the other side. Upstairs, there was a celebration because we've just sold a bunch of slaves. That will be the last time they would ever see each other. In the dungeon, in the belly of that slave palace, where it was cold, the sea came in because its salt water would rot half of the body. That's why they were tossed overboard, because they were of no use. But they had gained the money. And they died, even leaving the shores of Senegal. That'll be the last time they'll be seen. Done, finished. And it was an emotional journey. It was a very emotional journey. There was a bridge. Again, I grew up listening and experiencing with my family a lot of spiritual things. Elder often talks and says that we are a spiritual people, a spiritual nation. There was a bridge they attempted and still attempt to build, and you can see from Gore to Senegal. So it'll be easier to travel. The bridge never could get built. They said the slaves in the sea and upon the land will not allow it. And I was very, very taken aback because my mother taught to me a lot, my grandmother a lot about spiritual things, spiritual people, how to do things, understanding spiritual stuff. So when I was there, I understood what they were saying. I was 14. I had heard it from the day I was born. So to the day 14, I understand what they're saying. And I'm like, this would never build, this bridge could never build. Years passed. And in 2008, I found it, 2007, I heard about Israelite Nation, Worldwide Ministries, I heard about Elder Shadrock and the book that he'd written, and my journey was set to be an Israelite because I finally found who I was and who I could represent. Who am I? I was told from the story of Natasha, my wife, that you're nothing. You're just a black boy on the street. You have no identity. You have no life. You have no future. You are not human enough. You're not good enough. I went through the trials of life and you get rejected and you get scorned. I never knew my father. My elder knows this. We didn't know our fathers. We grew up with a stepfather who doesn't like you. And you go through the torment of life as a young black male growing up. But I'm grateful to be able to stand before you today as the vice president of the Remember the 400 to educate and to teach, not just to hate our oppressors for what they have done to us. That is the job of our God, to punish them. That is his job. Our job is to understand and to remember who we are as a people. Because as our elder Shadrock quite rightly said, it was a man, a white man, if you like, a British man, English even so, who petitioned on our behalf for the end or the abolishment of slavery. And he died not seeing that come to fruition through his own illnesses. So we have to understand, it is not a war against each other, even though it seems so. You go on the street, as the story was told, I don't know if my own brother is going to kill me, if my own brother is going to stab me or set me up. We've seen it amongst our times with other leaders. Martin Luther King, killed. One of the other guys said he actually stood aside so the bullet could get him. Malcolm X, get your hand out of my pocket, dies. Our leaders, they say that even Bob Marley was killed by his own, or by something in his shoe, dead. But our job in the Remember the 400 is to bring forth the reality to the children of Jacob, otherwise known as Jacobites, to the true understanding and knowledge of self. And being able to do that, you are now on the right path to know who you are as an Israelite, a child of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is your God. That's why the Remember the 400, it's so poignant and so good for us to understand that this is a great direction to be a part of, is a great incentive for us all to be part of. So, in closing and in finishing, to being a member of the Remember the 400, to putting your hands in to be able to teach all of our children, Jacob, and everybody else that would hear, is a mission and of a great, great work. And there's plenty for us to do. I see some smiling faces. I see people who I've known for many years. I see the young men, and it is good to see you. I hope that the young ones like Lewis, he's very young, and Pansy, and Chris, and Aaron, that even you, and even young Bathsheba. Hi, Bathsheba. We didn't forget you. That will be able to take up that mantle and be able to even walk with us. And Tamar, I see you. We've got to mention the names of the young RISE members who have been there and supported us from the very beginning. Even Jakem leading on all the marches. We just heard from our young RISE executive, Christopher Porter, who'll be leading the young RISE members. This is the Remember the 400. This is Freedom Month. This is the day that we should be able to gather together under one umbrella in one mind, body, and spirit to effect change. Irrespective of what the world says, we know who we are. So February, let's get rid of that. October in the UK, definitely not. The month that is more relevant to us is August the 1st, the entire month. So much great things has happened in this month. Let's forward it. Let's continue to push it through Parliament. As Doreen Simpson said, the president of the Remember the 400 said, that we need to make this legislation, and we should be doing everything within our power as individuals to affect that change. So I'd like to say thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much, viewers in Cyberworld, and for joining us today. We're grateful for your participation. Please, everyone here, let's band together and let's enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tyrone Soiree, Vice President of Remember the 400. And now I would like to introduce the host of this event tonight, which is Gappus Culture, headed by our very own Priest Frederick Malcolm.
Am I gonna just jump up?
You could jump up.
Okay, well, we're about to close anyways. Whew. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Freedom Month to all. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on this wonderful occasion. This is our Gappus team, our culture team of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. We are proud to do what we're doing today. We are proud to have all of you here today on this wonderful occasion. And with that being said, I would like to call up our elder Shadrock, if you may, elder. Come on, elder. Because no celebration day is complete without some cake. So, Elder, if you can do the honors of just slicing this. Maybe not married, Elder, but this just marks the occasion of today. Yep.
Okay, first you gotta put it in the middle.
Let me turn you to the side, Elder, so everyone can see you.
And then you bring it down like
Bring it right down, Elder.
All right.
Yes, that's my piece. That's no
Hey. That's a live knife there. So please feel free to visit our table at the back. We're having some fundraising. If you want to purchase some lovely items that we have there, please do so. Put your order in. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Please, can we have number 6? And with that being said, I want to salute in our very own Israelite salute. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Peace, everyone.